I wonder if I can put that on my resume. Hey guys, and welcome back to another Random Distractions home theater video. First of all, I'd like to say it's cool that Arendal accepted my application to become an ambassador for them. You can check out the write-up that I did on their website. I'll put a link in the description below, and I'll also put a link to the video that kind of accompanies that information as well. I think they're a great set of speakers, and I'm glad to be representing them and sharing my experience with them. With that in mind, I wanted to share a little more info on the Arendal 1961 towers and the bookshelf speakers. In one of my previous videos, I actually mentioned that I was originally thinking of going with bookshelf speakers for the front, left and right, in addition to the surround back left and right, but ultimately decided to go with the towers instead. I also had a comment in one of my other videos asking what I thought about the bookshelves just on their own. And since I have both, I decided why not test them. So for this comparison test, I'm actually going to be comparing the 1961 towers both in the ported mode and the sealed mode, which is what I currently use, and then also in a 2.0 configuration, which is just the speakers themselves, and a 2.2 configuration, which adds the dual SVS SP3000s. I thought it might be good to play a song with each configuration and then using REW to show what it sounds like with my setup and in my room. And unfortunately, while this won't exactly reflect what you might get out of this system in your room, hopefully it at least gives an idea of what it sounds like. But I also provide my own personal experience and what I heard. I will be using a copyright-free song, that way I can play it a little bit longer. However, off camera, I did listen to some of my other favorite tracks, and just to get a better idea of like how each configuration sounded. I did put timestamps below though, that way you can jump around to hear the different configurations, hopefully in a pretty quick, easy way. First off, the 2.0 configuration. So again, this is just going to be the speakers, whether it's the towers or the bookshelves by themselves, no subs. And let's listen to the samples, and I'll be back in a few minutes. So starting with the bookshelves, they actually really surprised me. They don't go super low, of course, but what they do produce comes out really clean. To be honest, they actually reminded me of my old towers, the Pioneer Andrew Jones FS22s. As far as like their response, even including down to the base. But those were, you know, towers that were ported and had multiple drivers. So again, they just really surprised me. Now for the 1961 towers in ported mode. To switch the Arendal 1961 towers to ported mode, all you have to do is go around the back towards the bottom. There's a foam insert, and you just kind of have to take that out, and it's in there pretty good. So that reassures me that when it is in there, that it's definitely sealing, you know, the port. Now normally I run the towers in sealed mode, so this was actually the first time that I had taken that foam insert out. So I was really interested to hear them in ported mode for the first time. I've seen videos, and you've probably seen them too, where the reviewer will say something like, you know, I had to check if my subs were turned off. And I can actually finally say that too. I did notice in some songs where the extra, you know, bass from the sub was missing a little bit. But to be honest, if you were just running these and were using it for music alone, I think you would be completely fine without a subwoofer for sure. I think you would notice that more maybe if you were using them to, you know, to watch a movie where they do have lower frequencies, and that sub does come in handy for those kind of situations. Finally, the towers in sealed mode, and as I said before, this is how I normally run them. I don't need them to go that low because I have dual SB3000s which take care of, you know, that portion, so I don't need them to be that low. And I've seen and heard from multiple places that it's usually easier to integrate a sub with sealed speakers. As far as how they sounded without that sub, they sounded good. Both the ported and the sealed version of the towers, of course, bring more presence to the sound compared to the bookshelf. But of course, you know, they're towers, so they should provide a little bit more. And while they don't provide as much bass as when they're ported, the bass definitely feels much more controlled to me. All right, so now it's time to go to the 2.2 configuration for each one. So again, this will be now the speakers and then adding the dual SB3000s. Let's listen to them first, and then I'll come back and share my thoughts. So first, the bookshelf speakers. The sub really helps bring out the low end, and the system sounds really great with that pairing. However, since I do have the towers, I can tell that there is something that's missing there. So the towers do bring that presence that the bookshelves don't quite bring. Of course, they're bookshelf speakers, so they don't have, you know, as many drivers or as big as what the towers are. I will say that since I use the speakers normally for my surrounds, that I don't notice them lacking anything when they're doing that. Moving to the towers in ported mode, I know that I mentioned that I've heard that it's easier to integrate a sub with sealed speakers. And I'm assuming that this is thanks to the Anthem, but they integrated really well with the subs in ported mode as well too. To be honest, it was really hard for me to tell the difference between ported mode and sealed mode once the subwoofers were added. Now I definitely noticed the difference when there was no sub. The ported mode had more bass for sure. But once the subwoofers added, and like I said, I think it's definitely due to the Anthem calibration that it just integrates really well. So I couldn't tell the difference between them. And finally, of course, in sealed mode, this is how I normally run my system, and I will continue to run it this way, I think. Although it is important to note that I do add a plus 3 dB room gain boost in the calibration, which is how I've found that it sounds the best to me. So in this mode, it sounds as good as it always does. So speaking of Anthem, I also wanted to share the measurements that came out of the calibration, since it does use the 5 different positions to take a measurement for each of the speakers. You know, I thought it might be interesting to see those. First, the front left bookshelf, the front left tower in ported mode, the front left tower in sealed mode, now the front right bookshelf, the front right tower in ported mode, the front left tower in sealed mode. While I certainly feel that the bookshelf speakers can produce good sound, I'm glad that I have the towers for that additional presence that they bring to the sound overall. However, I'm glad that I'm using the 1961 bookshelf speakers for surround duties because they don't disappoint there at all. Well, that's all that I have for this video. If there's anything else that you would like me to test out in regards to the speakers, let me know in the comments and I'll see what I can do. But for this video, I would definitely appreciate a like, of course, and make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you'll be notified when the next one drops. And until then, I hope you have a good one.